Welcome to the Backrooms. An endless complex of halls and rooms, but for some reason everything is yellow. But there's more to it. The backrooms consist of many layers, called levels, and the deeper you go, the freakier it gets. And today, we turn this shit into a game. If you've seen the other videos on my channel, yeah I know, it's just this one here, you would know that I already made a Backrooms game prototype back in the early 2024. And to be honest, yeah, it looked okay for being made in 1 hour, but that's about it. In comparison to how the game looks now, the progress is insane, so stay tuned for the results at the end. But the Backrooms project had quite a journey here on my channel now, even though I only ever made one video about it. While I had, well, at least a somewhat regular upload schedule, I always kept working on improving the game in the background, planning on doing another video in this project since May of 2024. But it kept getting delayed due to me getting caught up in projects to cover up the lack of content I had, and also me scrapping the whole project in October 2024, as I wasn't happy with the design at all. But now, after almost 2 years of prototyping, I think I'm finally on the right track with the game, and contemplating if I should keep updating this and maybe even bring it to Steam this year. But see for yourself. The Backrooms lore is a bit complicated, as there is no actual canon. People can make up shit on the spot and call it their own version of the lore. There are some rather big communities though, collecting and writing their own narrative with at least some kind of quality control, like the Wikidot and fandom wikis and also the Kane Pixels community. But as I want to design my game as lore accurate as possible, I will probably mix the best aspects from all these most popular fandoms, basically creating my own lore or something like that, while staying true to the original theories and so on. But enough yapping about the community, let's talk about the actual lore. Alright, so level 0, the all yellow nightmare I already showed you at the start, is, as the name suggests, the first level of the Backrooms. It is a non-linear space resembling the backrooms of a retail outlet and shares features such as yellowish wallpaper, damp carpet, massive holes for some reason.
I mean, that's a great pit to have the circles there with the boys.
And inconsistently placed lights. Yeah, basically it's your average school's basement. On top of that, level 0 is entirely still and completely devoid of life, and therefore deemed a class 1 safe level. So f*** their monsters, none of you guys is making it in here. Though, even without monsters, level 0 is a pretty scary place, causing all kinds of hallucinations, and who knows if there's really nothing lurking within the darkest corners of the level. But yeah, enough lore talk for now. For everyone who fell asleep by now, time to wake back up and let's get back to the actual game making. So, as you know, I can't really model shit. Fictional characters? Nah. Realistic characters? But when it comes to backrooms, damn, I would hire myself as a 3D artist with these ones. Yeah, nah, probably not, but either way, this is just a small sample here and it looks pretty good, for it being done by my dumbass. But now let's make this into an actual playable map. That shouldn't take too long. In the end, it's just copying rooms and pasting them, right? Man, fuck those backrooms. I've been copy-pasting walls and pillars for the last 14 days, making multiple sections for a big map that can be put together just like Lego. But I kinda underestimated how time-consuming it is to make an interesting architecture with those walls and cubes. But now it's finally done and the map is massive, man. It got some pretty interesting corners where I tried taking inspiration from the countless found footage videos on YouTube, and it looks pretty good in my opinion. But now it's time to get it into the engine and make this shit a game, cause right now, it's just not a game right now, what do you expect me to say here? Now, I would have said some shit here like, subscribe, we're on the road to 1k, but yeah, we just smashed that goal in the last video by far, and I'm kinda looking for a way to celebrate this at the moment, so I was thinking about some kind of live stream here on the channel or so, with a Q&A and stuff like that. I don't know really though, so let me know in the comments if you were down for some community event like that, or I don't know, just join the Discord and let me know there, but for now let's just continue with the video. So I created a new Unreal Engine project and started loading in the assets, and immediately faced problems. You see, lighting in games is a crucial thing to get right, because without lighting, yeah, well, it's just dark on that end. Apart from that, there are different lighting systems, as Unreal Engine offers movable, stationary and static lighting. Movable lights are completely calculated during runtime. This means high performance cost, though also fully dynamic shadows, lighting and so on during runtime. Static lighting is different. The lighting is pre-calculated and encoded into the textures of the objects in a process called baking. And stationary is just a mix of both and just kinda exists as a default option, you know. The thing is though, as said before, I already had an almost done approach with dynamic lighting and yeah, it looked awful. Mostly because you can't really place a lot of lights that overlap with each other, which kinda ruins the look of level 0 as the room just ends up being dark even though there's like 10 lights in there. Oh, and did I mention that this whole thing will leave your PC in a state like this, while running on only 60 FPS with medium graphics settings? Yeah, I don't know about that. That's why I scrapped the initial approach and switched to baked lighting. Lights can be placed closer together here, as they don't need to be calculated during runtime and will be just baked onto walls and other objects. And during a first test, this looked amazing. But there was another issue. I couldn't keep procedurally generating the level parts based on chance. You see, before I wrote a chunk generation system, choosing the chunks mesh from a mesh pool of different rooms, with some being more common than others. But baked lighting doesn't allow procedurally generated content, or in general just content switching from time to time. As the name static suggests, it, doesn't move and shit. Therefore I had to make one big static map, but don't worry. I will later on try to add replayability by creating something called a map pool. I will do multiple versions of level 0 with different architecture and level designs, so almost every playthrough offers something new or unique and it doesn't get too boring after a while. But for now, let's just hit bake lights and... Turns out baking lighting can take up to multiple hours if you don't have a decent computer. Luckily, I have a pretty decent CPU and... Oh. That's not good. For some reason during recording this, my CPU cooler broke and my CPU was on a constant 90 degrees. And due to my PC being a pre-build I bought back in 2021, I could for some reason not remove the cooler, as some crackhead at the company thought, well, let's just modify the case so you cannot open it in any way, even if the cooler is broken. Hey, that sounds like a good plan, time to get my promotion. So yeah, I ordered some new PC parts that recently arrived, and after all that I could finally get back to working on the game. Jeez, why do I always get these delays, man? There was not really much left to do though for level 0, so I just made a little cutscene for you falling into the level in some kind of spawning room, and then reworked the player and camera handling a bit, making this cool looking and responsive camera control. I also added some VHS materials I got from an asset pack a while back, and I was pretty happy with the results to be honest, and then called it a day. But then I remembered something. I've always been a huge fan of Kane Pixel's found footage series about the backrooms, and this series also happens to feature an explanation for you ending up in the backrooms in the first place.
Your job!
In the series there's some kind of company doing research and opening up a portal to the backrooms to solve, I don't know, high housing costs or something like that, but the portal is hella cool, so give me a sec and there we have it. Backrooms portal, or as it is also called,
The Threshold.
This map kinda acts like a prologue to the game, where you and two other researchers of the mentioned company are supposed to gather some information about the backrooms, as this is the first test that actually ever resulted in a working and stable portal. And guess what? Your bitch ass gets separated by the group as you fall down this big ass hole. And that's why I'm unemployed, so shit like this does not happen. But with that, the game is already going in a pretty decent direction. But of course there's still a lot missing. I'm planning on adding more levels to the game, progressing in a somewhat linear way with level 1, then level 2 and so on. If there are some people actually interested in a game like this, which I know there are, but I just don't know how many yet. I will also try to bring this to Steam, so let me know if you would like seeing this become a real game and also what features you would like to see in there. As we got a special forum on the Discord server where you can submit ideas that might be added to the game later on, so check this out. But yeah, if you liked the video, consider subscribing, it helps me out a lot, and as always, smash like if you like, dislike if you don't, and... Wait, what is this? Oh.